Wow. Wow, that's awesome. Hey guys, I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike.
And this is No Limits, the live filler podcast. How you doing today, Mike?
I am feeling great. We are live here on No Limits to talk about Denied Access, the Kill Shot sequel, completing the American Assassin trilogy. It's all happening this year, September 9th, 2025. Chris, so I'm doing great, but I know you're a little under the weather.
Yeah, I just took a 3-hour nap. I'm a little under the weather, but I could not pass up the opportunity to talk this. You put a lot of work into getting this live thing happening, so I'm rallying. I'm rallying for you. I'm rallying for Vince. I'm rallying for Don. I mean, more importantly, I'm rallying for you patrons because we wanted this to happen because this is a huge deal. Okay,
Really big.
This is a huge deal. Let me just start right off the rip. Right, yesterday, I'm at work, and for some reason, I have my Gmail up, and I'm looking at my Gmail when I get the email, and I see it. I'm like, oh, I look at, and then as I'm reading it, my mind is just going crazy. And then I start texting in our group, and I'm like, no way. And I call you, and you don't answer.
I know. I missed the call.
I
missed the call. I know.
And then as soon as everyone in our Mitch Rapp Pod group me starts realizing it's just going crazy. And I don't know. First of all, we got to get into the last week us I don't know, thinking about we're potentially being tricked that with the game, Mystery Atri Bus, he does his games, and then radio silence.
Yeah.
When we get the third one, it leads us to this website, and I'm imagining it's what's that 404,
redirect error.
Redirect, or everyone's like, or is denied access.
Denied access.
The name. We don't know. Okay. And then I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, looking to see, and then other people are having the same reactions as us. Is it denied access? And then we get the email with the cover too. We don't even have to wait for the cover,
dude.
And the synopsis. Normally
they drop the bomb.
Normally they tease it out, my dude.
Dude, they dropped the title, the cover, the plot. Don Bentley even went on socials to say he's completing the trilogy. He held up a picture or an actual copy of American Assassin and Kill Shot. It's everything the fans were waiting for, and they made us work for it. In fact, Chris, not even an hour ago, I was in touch with somebody, and I have some definitive answers on how the title reveal went down.
Really?
Because denied access, I will say, I started Googling, is that programmer coding speak for a redirect error? I was looking if you redirect a URL to the wrong website, what would the coding language be? And denied access just seemed off. I have confirmed someone very closely in the publishing marketing area around the Vince Flynn website, confirmed it was intentional. They had discussed going media silent for a short period, a day or two. I think they went with 24 hours, not responding to anybody to build the suspense, to get people kind of a little agitated. And I think it's a perfect marketing gimmick.
Hey, the bus does it again.
Dude, the bus got us, because when those first 3 trivia clues were so easy, I was like, what? They dumbed it down? These are ambassadors we're talking about, and the trivia game was a little simple. Then when Access Denied came out, I was like, this could be bothersome, but they played their cards perfectly because they revealed all 3 at the same time. If we didn't get all of that information at that perfect moment where we're just kind of equally annoyed, but also equally suspenseful, and the conversations online on social media were going hardcore, they dropped it at the perfect time. All that was intentional. They even told Don Bentley, hey, don't post, don't don't respond, don't put anything in the comments until he drops his video and the newsletter, because they want the vinceflynn.com newsletter subscribers to get it first. So all the ambassadors, the subscribers, couldn't have played it better. Mission accomplished. Hats off to all the folks running the vinceflynn.com website, Atria Mystery Bus, pulling the strings. And one last little story, peek behind the curtain. This individual told me, planning with David, The night before all this went live, they did not have the plan for the redirect and the URL to not show everything. It was a midnight plan. They couldn't sleep, middle of the night, 2, 3 a.m., tossing and turning. One calls the other, doesn't answer. Then like 7 a.m. in the morning, calls him, he's not awake. Gets an email at 8:30 and is like, let's do this thing, but let's not give the people everything. Let's go for a day media silent. And they thought of this in the middle of the night, early morning, pre-coffee, waking each other up with these ideas. And it was David's middle of the night, genius idea, got it rolling. And the next morning they did it. I mean, yeah, impressive.
Shout out to our patron, Adam, who was piecing through every single hyperlink on the Mitch Rapp, on the Vince Flynn website, looking at all the books and
dashes, no dashes,
and trying to parse out. And he obviously parsed out there existed another previously, or at one point there was a different that then got active later on. So yeah, that's so funny.
They played it perfectly. It was just awesome, and it was all intentional. There was a slight, maybe like 5% in the back of my mind chance that this thing went wrong, and then they scrambled and decided on denied access anyway because there was this big mess up. I was like,
couldn't. No, come on. No. There's too much. Come on.
There was that tiny bit of me. I know. There was a tiny bit of me who wondered, and I got it confirmed. I thought their cards were dealt perfectly the way they handled that.
Perfect. Well, after this, you're going to have to tell me who your inside source is.
Sure. Well, I mean, forget the inside sources. We got inside patrons, and they're all in the chat. Welcome, Mark. Welcome, Matthew. Who else do we have? We have Daryl. We have Mike. The best of the best right here, Mitch Rapp fans. If you too want to join this group of exclusive Mitch Rapp fans and Thriller fans, for less than the price of a novel a month, you can support the podcast, help us make more podcasts, and help us make more live videos and video content. Just go to thrillerpod.com, click the Patreon link to learn more. You'll get access to our quarterly book clubs where we all vote on a different book of the month.
Yeah, I just had a great one on a Saturday. It was nice.
Plum Island, Nelson DeMille. That might have been my favorite chat yet.
That was a good one.
That was a blast. We have an ongoing chat.
We also talked about denied access there too. So
we did. Yeah.
We like to stick to, at least the book for, a solid 45 and then we, verge out into other things.
The Sherry rule. We have to be on book for at least the bulk of the conversation. Yeah. But it always devolves into Mitch Rapp talk. You know that.
Right. Inevitably.
Yeah. Great stuff. Well, we love you guys. We couldn't do things like this video right here without the patrons. So thanks for everything.
Yeah. You were telling me right before the pod, you purchased something for a special giveaway during this live episode, right?
Yeah, if you stick with us to the very end and put your name in the chat, which we already have a couple of you, we're going to do an autographed copy of Kill Shot randomly. Anyone joining us tonight puts their name in the chat. Kill Shot signed by Vince Flynn. So that will be yours. One lucky viewer.
Very nice.
Yeah. But Chris, what else are we going to do tonight? We want to talk denied access. How are we going to break it down?
Got to. So I think let's first give our, first reactions. We kind of give our first reactions to like finding out the access, but I want to get into your thoughts about, why are we doing it now? Potentially I want to get into like where we left off, dig into a little bit of this plot synopsis. But just off the rip, what are your thoughts about having the trilogy potentially completed at the end of this year?
We've been waiting since what? 2012? Killshot came out in 2012.
Yeah, the same year as
The Last Man.
The Last Man, yeah.
So Vince's last two books.
February. Well, Killshot was February that year. Yeah.
February, and then Last Man in November. Damn, what a year. And such a gap between those books, right?
Right.
20 plus years probably, or close to of Mitch's career, maybe a little less than that. So, I mean, that's unbelievable. We've been waiting since 2012, 13 years to get this. We know Kyle was itching and talking about it for a little bit. He even came on our podcast and said this is something he's interested in. He said on the back burner, he had some ideas going. For whatever reason, that didn't come to fruition in his time. And I think everyone realized, give the people what they want. And Don Bentley had a book to prove it, and prove it he did. And what's awesome is that he already wrote a book inside the Vince Flynn timeline. Sure. So I think he proved himself. He can have those creative ways to think how Vince thought through a story. And he proved he can handle the characters. I mean, look at Irene and Mitch and how they were portrayed in Capture or Kill. So I think he's the guy. And now he'll get more time with Hurley, more time with Stansfield, more time with the Ohlmeyers. I think Don's the guy to do it. And this is the time.
First thing I texted in the group was like, Greta, not only am I excited about that, but she's mentioned in the plot synopsis. Let me, should I read this for you guys?
Yeah, tell us what is coming in Denied Access.
Perfect. All right. In a world, to protect the world he loves and saves, let me start that. To protect the woman he loves and save the CIA from destruction, Rapp must be willing to risk everything. Don Bentley completes the trilogy begun with American Assassin, taken by Mitch Rapp back to his fledgling assassin days. Fledgling, interesting. Picking up where Killshot ended, on the mission to save the woman he loves amid a CIA showdown with a Russian intelligence service in the new thriller from the author of Vince Flynn's #1 New York Times bestselling series. The Central Intelligence Agency is in crisis. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Congress is questioning the organization's necessity. Interim CIA Director Thomas Stansfield must fight for his agency's survival while explaining why the previous candidate for his job was found murdered in a French hotel, surrounded by booze, cash, and dead men. Worse yet, a brilliantly run sting operation in Moscow has resulted in the arrest of America's most prized Russian asset and the expulsion of his CIA handler. With the CIA's Moscow station now paralyzed by this catastrophic intelligence failure, Stansfield seeks to help from Mitch Rapp, a newly minted assassin in the secretive Orion program. But Rapp has a problem of his own. When his Swiss girlfriend Greta's grandfather receives a box containing the head of a former Cold War comrade, what is this, 7? Along with a note promising that Greta's head will be next.
Oh, man.
Rapp finds himself on the front lines of the war between the Americans and Russian intelligence services. To protect the woman he loves, save the CIA from destruction, Rapp must be willing to risk everything. Denied Access. All right.
Dude.
So much to unpack there.
Before we unpack that, I might be able to unpack some of it in the form of a limerick.
Ooh, let's get it. First live limerick of the pod. Here we go.
What happened after Killshot, you ask? It's Don Bentley who will finish the task. Greta seduced, Aziz on the loose, Ohlmeyer and Hurley, what a blast.
Boom, baby.
Dude, we're going hard into the Greta stuff because we need to know. I actually think maybe more so than where Rafiq Aziz is, the #1 thing this book has to do is explain Greta's disappearance. #1. Would you agree?
Yeah. And based on the little bit we got, it's like, oh shit, is she dead?
Rapp would be a different person though, if she were. Because how later on in the series, the loss of other women is like a thing he's been through and he remembers them and that struggles with that. We never really got to see him struggling with the loss of a Greta in terms of her dying.
Yeah, true.
So can we square that peg or that, square that round peg? I don't know.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That's going to be that is the hardest thing to do. We mentioned this with Capture or Kill, right? When going back into a series, doing a prequel, and anything you do can't have catastrophic effects within the series. I mean, I guess they could, but it leads to lack of continuity. It leads to fan disappointment, fan mistrust. So I feel like there's a lot of things you can do in a prequel, but there's also a lot of things you can't do in a prequel. So right. I think it's going to be interesting, all that we can unpack with Greta, with where she is, what happens. But yeah, I completely agree. Like, and if this book, you mentioned the other big thing that I kind of want from this book, if this is the only book we're going to get.
That's a question,
right?
That's a question.
How many years between Killshot and Transfer of Power? Transfer of Power is there?
We're the nerds who usually would dig into that, but I haven't.
Well, I think we've done it before.
It's in the ballpark of 10. It's in the ballpark of 10 years.
I think it's at least 10 years, right? So, all right, Mitch is
he goes from like
early
20s to like
mid-30s.
Mid-30s. Like
early to mid-30s.
He's talking about getting out of the game. Yeah. Like he's been through some stuff in Transfer of Power.
Yeah, so
10 years of stories. That could be a lot of books.
Exactly. And, every now and then we get a little bit of hint. Vince would throw in a little one-liner, little one-paragrapher of things that Mitch has done, operations that he's gone on. When he would interact with people, be like, oh, I met you, I did this with you, like whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of story. So, but I'll caveat that by saying, if this is going to be the only book we get, I think we have to do both Greta,
the Scar,
obviously, and we have to do Aziz.
Aziz Chase. But that's a big if this is the only book we're getting.
I know.
In that window.
Would you be disappointed if we don't get Aziz?
So I thought about this a lot, because my first reaction was, what happens to Greta? And Rapp hunts Aziz, gets the Scar, Aziz escapes. But then I slowed my roll a little, and I just put up something from Mike. Mike nailed it. It depends on the gap. Like,
sure,
we know Don Bentley is the guy who said, I can be that clandestine operative in an author sense who can come into a series and sneak in and get it right. I can cross my T's, dot my I's, and like place myself in between another author's books. So he could be the guy to continue doing that for these 10 years. There's really nowhere else in the series you get.
Yeah, I mean, because you could do a whole book on Aziz, right? Or a couple books.
You could do an Aziz book. You can do an Aziz trilogy. And again, it's 10 years. Think about how many books we've got post-Transfer of Power that take place in 10 years. Basically all the other ones. So 20-something.
Vince was aging a little bit, but then Kyle just completely stopped the aging, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it all comes down to what's the long-term plan or vision. And I don't know if that's Don who has a long-term plan and has a chance to propose it and earn his contracts, or if it's Emily Bessler or the estate, or who is the one saying long-term, this series could go 30, 40 books if you plug in these 10 years. If not, we have to come back to Kyle Mills's Mitch Rapp, the one dealing with the Cooks and their abdication. The billionaire, right? Nicholas Ward and Irene being kicked out of the CIA and now presumably coming back to the CIA. I don't know if we'll ever go back there in the short term or the long term.
Yeah.
So I think they can make a definitive statement in this book if they show the Aziz stuff, if they show the Scar scene. We leave with Aziz having this beef for Rapp, wanting to get back at him in America. This could be it. This could fill the gap entirely. But if there's another possibility here, that the whole Russia stuff and how we're going into deep in the Kremlin and Rapp has to get involved with saving the CIA's reputation, we can have a whole nother story here that's unexpected. And if that's the case, it has a chance to open up a whole new world of storytelling in this time period, which could be 1 book, 2 books, 3 books, 10 books. That's the whole question for me is, do we show the Rafiq Aziz stuff? Does Mitch get the Scar? And if he does that wrap it up? Or is there more story between now and Transfer of Power?
Yeah, it's a super interesting question. And I think, it's kind of a very unique idea to sort of re-kickstart this not that it needed re-kickstarting this series, but all right, you had crazy circumstance where your author passes away way too prematurely, right? We would have loved to have Vince around. You find an author who's able to take that over, give it his best and do it for a couple of years. Obviously, we get a bunch of stories that we love there, takes it in a certain direction. Multiple times is sort of outpacing reality with some of his stories.
Yes.
But then ultimately decides all right, this is not for me anymore. I want to do my own thing, right? Which we can get into fade in at the end, talk about that.
Sure.
But now you have a third author coming in, right? And obviously he had a choice. What do I do? Do I follow Kyle, or do I try to do something else? And obviously he chose the latter.
Yeah.
With going back and capture a kill. And then our biggest question coming out of that was, all right, where do we go now? Because you could have also just stayed within that time period, right? Like, you could have done another story in between, because there are some books where there are like larger gaps.
Yeah.
In the back of my mind, I thought like we would never get this. I always thought it was like, it's like,
I thought it was going to be elusive. It was going to escape us. It would never come.
yeah, it's like, when I'm trying to think of like a music thing when people would ask for like, a certain album, and then like, it just never comes, right?
Part 2.
But yeah, like, and finally, now we're getting it, and it's like I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I have so many questions.
Yep.
I just want this book now. I can't believe it doesn't come out till September 9th. I hate that my favorite series is like the last of like the summer releases, but I guess it's all that more anticipation. Yep. Hopefully we get the arc soon.
The arc,
yeah. I don't know. Super intriguing. Are we gonna? I guess the biggest question is: is this just one and done?
Yep.
Or are we planning on staying around?
Yeah.
And how do you toe that line?
That's the big one. And I don't know how the pitch was made, when Don proposed wanting to do this, because we know Kyle proposed wanting to do it. And in fact, I dug through the archives a little bit and found our interviews with Kyle, because we asked him straight up, is this something he'd like to do?
Multiple times.
So look at these young podcasters here with a young man, Kyle Mills, back in the day, 2020, the beginning of Mitch Rapp Pod and the beginning of many other things globally. But here's Kyle talking to us about writing the Kill Shot sequel one day.
Have you ever considered down the road going back in time? Would you ever like to try something new and fill in gaps in the past?
Look at those babies.
Story.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the arc that started with American Assassin went to Kill Shot and then disappeared. I mean, it was pretty clear that Vince intended to go back to that at some point, because it just sort of ended. I mean, we don't know what happened to Greta. We don't know how he and Hurley became like really super close. They hated each other at the time. So there's a ton of stuff there, between Kill Shot and Transfer Power to plumb there. So it would be really fun to do that. And maybe someday I'll convince people to let me do it. We'll see.
Well, the fans are behind you.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of the fans would be behind it. A lot of them asked for it. So we'll see. I mean, believe me, I've promoted it and floated it by the powers that be, because I think it'd be really fun to write. I mean, essentially that's historical, be a historical thriller. That would have been like, the late 80s, early 90s. So.
Well, this podcast is 100% behind you in that effort, for what it's worth.
Wow. At least we have a better setup now. I had a lot more hair back then. I guess that was 2 kids ago. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're listening to Kyle there, and he says it all, right? If I could convince someone to do it. And so obviously between then and now, whoever is controlling this was convinced.
Right.
Probably had to be because of a great pitch,
Yeah. It had to be.
And ultimately, like that makes me excited about this book, that it would have to be that big of a pitch, that amazing of a story, that Don was able to, land this. So
I think it's equally the pitch, but I also wonder how much it is the fans, because Mitch Rapp has always had a unique fandom. Vince Flynn had started something, I think, for all of fiction, definitely the thriller genre, but all of fiction, that really modernized it, and really being early, dawn of the internet 2.0, what it would become. This is the first series, I think, that was truly like social mediaized, and the fandom, and then the ambassador program, like very much interactive. It's like a sports team.
Sure.
You know how some franchises or some owners realize the fan base must be listened to? Like, it happens in European soccer a lot. Like, the fans, particularly the ultras, have like a stranglehold on, policy. And some owners who come in, combat that and try to, and eventually you just have to relent and say, like, give the people what they want. There are other sports and franchises where that doesn't happen. But in terms of thrillers, Mitch Rapp is the one where the fandom you cannot ignore. And so I do wonder, with the age of social media, how much feedback they got about wanting to complete the trilogy. It's just unfortunate it couldn't have happened a few years earlier, only because we know Kyle really wanted it. And there was this other interesting tidbit when he came back to talk to us for Code Red. Was that 2023 Code Red? Yeah, because
Code
Capture or Kill
Red.
was 24.
What, 24? Yeah.
Code Red 23. We had asked him then, when he knew about the transition, how he felt about not being able to write that Kill Shot sequel. Here's what we got. Earlier, that's something you might be interested in, a historical fiction concept. You know, we get to see Thomas Stansfield, Stan Hurley, the Ohlmeyer clan, Greta. How do you feel that is something that's not going to be in your on your resume?
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have finished that Kill Shot trilogy. I have to admit, Kill Shot's one of my favorite Mitch Rapp novels. So, and it would have been fun to do something historical, but yeah, it just wasn't, it wasn't meant to be. I think there were a lot of interesting storylines for Mitch moving it forward. So going back, that far, I think it'd have been interesting and fun, but I just didn't get that much traction for it with the publisher. And not that they said no or anything, but it just didn't feel like they were that excited about the idea. So it's not like there wasn't other stuff to write about. Yeah. So I just never did it, but I have a lot of it in my head. So
Maybe one day.
For a beer with Don, some of those things might slip out.
yeah, you never know. Maybe I mean, there's a good chance he will do it because it's certainly something people ask about all the time. So
Kyle, reading the tea leaves again, knowing that Don's going to one day do it. And another thing Kyle said is he has all these ideas. Can you imagine Kyle Mills reading this book and getting to see if it matches up with his vision? And just, if we could somehow compare what's in their minds about this story, that would just illustrate so much about the human mind and psychology and, different people's interpretations of things. That would be pretty cool for a series to branch out and have alternate universes by alternate writers. I don't want that for this series, but it would be a really
of rap.
Dude,
the
can you
Rapverse.
imagine grabbing a beer with Don and Kyle after this book comes out and just letting them spitball and hear what they each had to say? Oh, and one other thing about this, I have heard, Kyle did tell me that he spoke to Don. He said they had a nice long conversation. I think it was just today he messaged me that. So it's good to hear that they are in cahoots or they're in contact. I don't think Kyle knows much about the plot. I don't think he got all the details from Don, from what I could tell. He says he doesn't know much, but they did talk about it. So, man, if it could be a fly on that wall. If we can get Pegasus and listen into that one.
Yeah. Call the Israelis.
Can you hack Kyle Mills's Signal WhatsApp account for us?
Maybe DeepSeek could do that for us.
DeepSeek, can you find the conversation between Kyle Mills and Don Bentley on January 28th?
Maybe you could do a better job than. Do you remember was someone posted asked when ChatGPT was first coming out, have it finished Kill Shot, and then posted the synopsis for it. It was really bad.
Yeah. ChatGPT isn't great with synopses of books or character lists from books because it doesn't have the access to the full text.
To the full text. Yeah.
So all it can do is reference
what other people say. Yeah.
Secondary sources, which on their page might also mention other books and crisscross, and it's not there. Chinese can do it with DeepSeek, but ChatGPT can't.
Yeah, because they don't care about copyright. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
that's
kidding.
true.
I
Just upload all these things right into it. Yeah, that's a good point. They're not going to be sued in an American court over
I
it.
wonder how well it does on things that are in the public domain. Then, Charles.
Oh, it'd probably do
Dickens.
great.
Yeah,
I think it'd do great. Yeah, because you find so
Anyways.
many websites with PDFs of that are free and available. Point of clarification. Thank you, Mark. All the patrons. What a group of rap nerds. I'm proud to be in this group. 6 years. He found text evidence in Kill Shot. Rapp was 25 in Kill Shot, 31 American Assassin. So,
because it's a couple years between Assassin
in
and
transfer
Kill Shot, right?
power.
No, but I know, but there is a couple years between the end
Yeah.
of American Assassin to where we're at Kill Shot.
Which is funny because I didn't know, because Rapp was so young when he got recruited to the program out of college.
Yes.
And in Kill Shot, he's still an amateur. They're still talking about him, being the baby, and he's not fully embraced, right? The whole point of Kill Shot is Victor Chet Bramble. Ooh, maybe that's someone we should talk about. Victor sets him up and he's like, I'll get away with it because I'm in with Stan. You know, I'm in with Hurley. He's my guy. And the only one really going to bat for Rapp is Irene at this point. Even Stansfield, you know, they had a nice conversation, but not 100% sold on him. So I feel like Rapp is still like young and an amateur, but yeah, it's 4 years, 3 or 4 years since American Assassin. Although I do think they say he spent a year with Greta in between, you know, while they were actually together.
Right.
Timeline's a little off.
I had a couple questions about the synopsis. Maybe we can hash this out, maybe get some input from anyone listening. So obviously the previous candidate for the job who was found murdered in a French hotel, that has to be that, you know, the Paul Cook.
Paul Cook.
He was
being groomed
with Fournier.
Yep.
He's being groomed. Like that's him, right? He was the deputy director of the CIA, or one of the deputy directors of the CIA.
Yeah, and so in Killshot, the Secretary of State was basically using him to try to take out Stansfield. So that guy was deputy director under Stansfield. But this text says Stansfield was interim, so I can't remember what happened
I'm confused about
before Stansfield.
Because Stansfield is the director in American Assassin, right?
Yeah, but I think he's new, right? Or does he just take over? I don't. So
See,
apparently,
obviously, we're supposed to be the scholars, 10 scholars, but no, that's not us. That's the Real Book Spy. Got to get
true. Get him on it.
You know what that means, though? That means our already stacked 2025 reading list. We got to add 2 more books to it to revisit. Cause
right.
I need to have these in my life again, just to get ready.
I got to revisit them, but you know what we'll do at the very least? Since we already said we're going to cover Mitch Rapp moving forward on the Thriller podcast, what if we rerun on Thriller Pod our old American Assassin and Killshot episodes? That way people on the Thriller podcast feed have those fresh and new. And it will be 2 more books that we've had covered on Thriller Pod, American Assassin, Killshot, and we'll post those so people can get ready on the Thriller Pod for when we do Denied Access over here.
Perfect.
And
do we talk about the movie that we don't like to talk about, or
what movie?
Yeah, okay.
I'm not aware of that which you speak.
I got you.
Yeah, I'd like to reread them both, but how about this? In case we can't reread them and do full revisited episodes, we'll at least rerun our old recordings.
Perfect.
I re-listened to Killshot, and let me tell you, I forgot a lot, and I rated it pretty poorly, but listening to
it's
our
one
combo...
of my favorite novels, but I'm a sucker for Paris, so...
Dude, listening to our conversation on it, yeah, I should have rated it higher, because I'm reliving these things, and I'm like, yo, that's massive, or that's a great kind of thing.
I know, but we were in the throes of doing the entire series, and everything, you know, is taken out of context. When you read a book standalone versus, you know, when we were in the thick of it, like, you know, I don't know. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And now we've branched out, and we've done all these other stories. We were, at that point, we were only doing Mitch Rapp, really, so.
You know what's funny? I think doing the Scot Harvath pod, and now on Thriller Pod, all these other authors, makes me like Vince even more.
It definitely makes you appreciate different writing styles, different things, you know, like when you're, you know, if we go back and read our least favorite, I guess we did that recently before Capture or Kill, because we thought
Pursuit of Honor. Yeah.
Pursuit of Honor was going to be like more of or Protecting the Family was one of them was going to be more of a influence. But, yeah. So I don't know. It makes you take things for granted sometimes when you're like just in the throes of a series.
There's nothing like picking up a Vince book.
No,
nothing.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about is this Russia, because you know we really hadn't tapped into Russia until Kyle goes there, right? So super intriguing.
And I don't remember a Russian connection that, like anything in Killshot. The conspirators, I mean, you had Aziz, Samir, you had Max Vega, who was this billionaire. I think he was like Saudi born, but like a Spanish national or something.
Right.
I don't remember any plot lines of KGB, Soviet era, you know, kind of influence. The way I can connect it, though, is this head that Grandpa Ohlmeyer gets in the box to threaten him and say Greta could be next. it sounds like that's somebody from the olden days when Ohlmeyer, Stansfield, Hurley, maybe even, who knows, Irene Kennedy's father, when they were younger, we know they were in Beirut together. We know there were some things connected to Berlin with all of them. So I'm wondering if whatever this threat is that sends Ohlmeyer this head, what does it say, head in a box or something?
Yeah, it's like from Seven.
Oh my God, a
What's in the
former
box?
Cold War. It says a former Cold War comrade. I feel like that's the Russian connection. Something about the Soviets back in the day, like Kyle mentioned in those clips, it could be historical fiction. I think we're going to get to at least hear some flashbacks
Oh,
of
that's
some
something that I've always wanted.
70s,
Is like
80s Cold War stuff.
Younger Stansfield, behind enemy lines, that kind of stuff.
Makes me think of that. Like, what else could be the connection to Russia coming out of American Assassin and Killshot, which I don't remember them having much to do with it.
Yeah, because we're in Lebanon, like pretty much. Besides being at the farm, the beginning of American Assassin, we're in Lebanon,
And then Paris.
Yeah,
And maybe
So-
some of the terrorists were like funded or connected with some sort of...
yeah. That I could see that being a role, because obviously Russian proxies. But
Possible.
is this a coincidence that two of the books coming out of Atria and Emily Besser's books are going back in time?
Which
Any
other one?
Coincidence?
Wait, which other one?
James Reese. The James Reese novel this year is about
right,
Tom
right. The
Reese.
Jack Carr book. Yeah. It's time for it. Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting. Maybe it's all the buzz. You know how the thriller verse often has these waves? Like, I thought we were done with the Russia wave, but apparently that's coming back again.
It's
Yeah.
like, whenever they're deciding this, because, we're always like a year behind from when they're doing it. Like, all right, I'm imagining in a room, if you had like Jack Carr, Don Bentley, Bessler. All right, guys, this year, it's all about going back in time.
Yeah. Oh, that was... What gear are you carrying today, Chris? Any new gear to show us? Wait, are those crossed tomahawks on your hat?
That'd be sick.
Oh no, that's an eagle on your hat. Let's not talk about that.
Ooh, go Birds, baby.
Oh, come on. You know the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win. Chiefs are going to win, so sorry. Not cheats. Oh boy. Unfiltered
way.
here. This is live. I got to stop that kind of talk.
I know you were texting the group like, Mike Unfiltered is a little dicey.
Bro, Mark just dropped 2 bombs in the group chat. Doc Lewis should return. And Arthur Higgins from Term Limits.
Ooh.
Arthur Higgins is the guy who had a grudge with Stansfield because he leapfrogged him to become director. Damn, Mark. That's deep cut. That's a deep cut.
Yeah, do we get like, where is Scott during this entire thing? I guess we don't get any Scott.
Well, yeah. What's Scott Coleman's deal? Because Term Limits, they come across each other at the baseball game. Well, Michael O'Rourke. No, Transfer Power. Baseball
At
game.
the Transfer Power baseball game, Michael O'Rourke
Michael
is the
O'Rourke brings-
crossover.
is- yeah. To bring them together. So Scott Coleman was probably just a SEAL, right? Just...
No, because he's no longer a SEAL during Term Limits, right?
Yeah, but Term Limits could still be a way off.
Yeah, I guess Term Limits could be a way off. Yeah.
So
Wow, all these questions I have.
does he have SEAL demolition in Term Limits? He had already started that? Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Here we go. The president before the president in Term Limits. Oh, what was the Term Limits president's name?
Steven?
I think it was. So we're going to see the president before him, who made Stansfield director. Oh, look at him. Look at Mark. Director Carlisle retired. He must have a great Chat GPT Mitch Rapp style here.
Or he's
Director
on the-
Carlisle. That's deep.
There
cut.
is a Vince Flynn encyclopedia out there. I know that on Audible, on Kindle. So
That's true. They did put that together. That came out, though.
right around Killshot.
I was going to say, was it published before American Assassin and Killshot? Was it just
No,
like...
it came out right around the time of Last Man.
Okay. Oh, okay. So if it came out with Last Man, then it would
It would have all of Vince's history at least.
all these characters. Dude, you want another deep cut? When I was revisiting Killshot, DeFleury, the priest in Sacré-Cœur.
Oh yeah,
Dude, if we get the priest,
because he's friends with like two of the guys, like Stansfield and
I'm pretty sure. So he knows Fournier, the DGSE French intelligence, and he lets them meet in the church thinking he's supporting, right, national security. But Fournier is using these secret meetings to meet with Rafik Aziz and Max Vega. And he cut a deal, essentially, Fournier, to protect France by feeding the terrorist information, basically taking their bribes and their payments, and therefore they won't attack France. So Fournier is like that crooked cop, but doing it for national security reasons. And the priest thinks he's doing a good thing, letting them meet in the church. And then he's inside the confessional. And in this one confessional room, there's an air duct and a vent where he can hear everything. Dude, what if DeFleury is the link that puts Rapp in touch with Aziz or lets him know Aziz is the guy? Because Aziz, at the final scene, right, in the hotel room where Rapp kills all the conspirators, Aziz wasn't there. They conveniently write he was on the tarmac getting the plane ready for their exit.
Right.
That's all we know about Aziz.
Right.
And then Fournier and Paul Cook have the dossiers on Rapp and Hurley. So Rapp now knows this cabal is going after he and Hurley. What if Aziz gets those files? Like Paul Cook was handing them over at the meeting, but what if there's an alternate copy and a way that the conspirators of Killshot are going to inform Aziz their targets should be Rapp and Hurley next?
Wow.
Dude.
Wow. Yeah. No, there's a lot.
How does Rapp find out about Aziz?
Yeah, like but to me, based on all this stuff, it doesn't even seem like we're going to go down that route.
Based on this description, it doesn't seem they will, but Vince left all the nuggets in Killshot. That final scene, the meeting was bugged by Rob Ridley. There's a throwback. Dude, we have got some deep cuts.
Yeah.
Rob Ridley bugged the hotel room at Hotel Balzac. And the reason I remember that is Rapp didn't want to say any words when he came in and flushed all those dudes. He made it look like they shot each other and had a beef, and he didn't even say anything, so no one would know he was there because he knew Rob Ridley and the CIA was listening. If Rafik Aziz's name came up, that's how Rapp gets the drop on Aziz. Rob Ridley has the recording and knows his name.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Dude.
I got to go back and read this book.
We've moved into the realm of irresponsible speculation. Is this a good path to go down?
Yeah, no, probably not. Maybe we should slow it down a little bit.
Well, before we slow it down, you mind if I pump the gas pedal one more time before I pump the brakes?
Sure.
Random thought popped into my mind. What if Greta was pregnant?
No, you couldn't do that again. That's why, like, you could never kill Claudia. Because Anna died.
Dude, she's not dead, man.
Anna?
No, Greta.
Yeah, but that means, so he just has a child?
Dude, hear me out. There's a line in Killshot that says Stansfield is going to kill Rapp because he pissed off Olmeyer by putting Greta in danger, because Greta was there when Victor, you know that shootout with Victor in that apartment complex? He brought Greta in and she was the witness. So Greta was the witness who saw this killing and how they figured out that Rapp is innocent, Victor's the bad guy. There's a line at the very end of Killshot that says, like, Olmeyer, who does all the banking for Stansfield, is going to tell him, one of your assassins put my daughter, in the fire, in the line of fire. Stansfield, Rapp says, is going to do everything to keep her away from him. And what if part of that is Rapp realizes he gets serious about this job and the Orion team and realizes, I have to 100% in every way, including my own inner dialogue, forget Greta for the sake of her life and possibly for the sake of his child. And he may not even know that, but he just knows he has to protect Greta at all costs. And that means 100% cutting himself off from thinking about her, talking about her, bringing it up to Stan, cold turkey. Just, it's not even in his mind. Oh, and here's another reason. He knows everybody breaks. if he doesn't 100% put it out of his mind, he knows he could be compromised one day if he's ever captured, and they can get Greta's name out of his brain. So he has to completely eliminate her, even from his like psychology.
Dude,
Irresponsible speculation.
irresponsible speculation. Definitely. That's funny.
Hidden rap, baby. Can you imagine? Oh my God.
All right, so let's get into the cover a little bit. You know, that's one of our big sticks here on the Mitch Rapp Pod. Judge a cover by the book.
Yes.
What do you think of denied access?
I'll be more responsible for this section. I was just ranting there. You know me. I'm unfiltered. I was just ranting.
We could go on and on. We could be here all night with irresponsible speculation.
That's the craziest one though. Rap as a kid. That one's bonkers.
For sure. That he has a kid that I don't know if you were trying to say that he doesn't even know he has a kid. You know, there's just a rap baby. So that way, like if Don was to go in the future and do a book, he could have like Mitch Rapp's son like come and like, hey, Dad,
Mitch meets his son too.
I want to be an assassin. Like,
this is crazy because we would be the first people to be like, "What the fuck? That's bullshit." Oh, can I have one more? One more.
All right, go.
One more. It's not as bad as the last one, and it's a little more realistic. In the meeting, at the end of Kill Shot, Stephen Rapp is brought up. Paul Cook tells the terrorist when he's giving them the dossier that Rapp is a guy they got to get out of the way. He says, Rapp's mom is terminally ill, so we can't really use her. And he says, I quote, but he has a brother who can be used as leverage.
Ooh. You know, it was interesting how we always just got mention of Stephen. We never like saw Stephen.
He comes in at one point. I think Kyle brought him in very briefly.
Yeah.
I think he funded something or whatever because he has all that money.
Well, he bought like all of that, the land.
The
where,
land.
like, they
the
have
land.
the Manassas compound. Like,
that's it.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was like a character, but we never like saw him.
He's never really been on page.
No. Is there a reason we haven't seen him on page? Because of some past traumatic event? Do we get to see Marcus and Steven together, like before the CIA, takes him?
Holding my tongue on Marcus.
We'll leave it for the pot. There's a lot that could happen there. I think we're getting into true.
Sure.
Irresponsible.
I'm done. And nothing about the plot reveal hints at any of this. So all these characters, these deep cuts we brought up, unfortunately, I don't think we're going anywhere with them. This plot seems totally unrelated. So I don't even know. I will say though, Vince left the breadcrumbs in the last chapter. He's mentioning Stephen Rapp and he's mentioning Ravika Seas, and if those breadcrumbs are there, they've got to be looped in somehow, even if we go do this Russia stuff.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be fun, man. I'm so hyped for this book. I haven't been this hyped for a book in a long time.
Maybe, yeah. I can't even think. I don't even know. Cover. All right, I'm done. That's it from me. Chris, what do you think about the cover?
Well, so first of all, it just like, I guess, topic of mind. With these LA fires, like it just gives me this sense of burning, and with obviously that's a Moscow tower. Our patrons did some Googling searches.
Yeah, the Kremlin.
Obviously Russia's going to be super central in the story, both from the cover, or at least I hope it is, from the cover, from the description. But to me, it looks like Moscow's burning. Very ominous, very eerie. I love the access denied with the access denied logo is kind of like distressed with
yes,
like it's dirtied up or scratched up. Whereas the Vince Flynn is super clean at the top.
Yeah,
I love it. An American assassin thriller. I love it.
It's a great touch. That's a great touch.
Oh, and they got it right at the top. New York Times best.
They got the author right.
Capture.
Yeah. Yeah, Don Bentley, author of Capture Kill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because for a while it was saying
Total
best-selling
Power
author
and-
of Total Power,
yeah.
like 5 books ago.
They heard from the fans. They were listening. Yeah, I think it's a great cover. I'm with you. Could be a 5 out of 5, but we can't say that yet. We haven't seen the paperback, international formats, the British ones. For all the reasons you just said, that fire, the orange color, the orange playing off that red of the star, which apparently is something very, very, that this building is known for. This red star is kind of like how it's identified as one of the spires on the Kremlin. The Vince Flynn, we've always had that golden text for the name Vince Flynn. Crisp, clean, against the dark sky with the fiery, flaming clouds below it. It's probably just a symbolic reference to kind of fire and this darkness, not an actual one, but I think the agencies are on fire from this description. You know,
Right.
The fall of the Soviet Union, all the intelligence agencies are scrambling, wondering what their purpose is, redefining their mission. And I think this cover just screams Russia. Denied access. What about the title? What's your take on that?
Yeah, don't really get much from the synopsis that like leads me to, really speculate too much on that, other than, this whole interim CIA director bit, like explaining why the previous candidate for this was so like when is someone rooting around and trying to figure out, what happened during Kill Shot, and then their access is denied. Who is denied access in
to
this
what?
story? And
Yeah.
to what? That really evokes some thought for speculation. So
Yeah.
I like it. I love the title. Even when I thought, I was like, is this a joke? Is it like that? That's a pretty sick title though. Like,
100%. I don't even know what to think about it. I've done my speculation. So great title. Looking forward to seeing who's denied access and why. Before we do our giveaway, I'm putting the names into a wheel of names to randomly spin anybody who mentioned the chat. It's all our patrons here tonight. The chat, I couldn't even keep up with it as we were going. We got to get a running man in cover C. If cover C doesn't have power lines, I'll be very disappointed.
oh, we got to go back to OG events with some
Dude.
power lines.
We've got to. If we don't, very upset. Before we do that, though, give me your top 3. Top 3. What does this book need to accomplish? What do you want to see this book get done in advance in the story?
I think number 1, it has to progress the Greta storyline. Potentially, I would say like it should have some closure with Greta. At least explain why we never see her again.
Yep.
I think, we need to continue to build to see Mitch as a formidable assassin, like becoming more on his own. And ultimately, I would like to see Aziz come into play, whether or not we actually get, the altercation where the scar happens, but I think we should at least get a little tidbit with him. I think if you're wanting to go down the route of having multiple books in this timeline, this is not like the finishing up of a trilogy. Although Don does say this is the finishing up of the trilogy. Are we going to get closure on that? Like, I think that's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
But I think it would be those 3 things I would like to see the most.
100%. Greta, Aziz, and closure on something. Even if the timeline is open to have more stories before transfer of power, some closure on this trilogy, it has to come to an end somehow. Even if that doesn't mean Aziz and the Scar and all the transfer of power lead up. So, dude, good stuff. Well, let's find out who it is taking home a copy of Kill Shot. 2 people. All right, Mark and Chris already have their copies. That's going to help you guys out. Mike, Matt, and Daryl. Let's see. Mike S.
Mike S.
Big
Congrats.
winner.
Thanks for listening, Mike S.
Yeah, and thanks for sticking with us this whole time, even through this Very irresponsible speculation over here.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, we got to do some thank yous. Big shout out to the people who made this happen. Got to thank Don. He's taking the lead. Like, this is awesome. Super excited about that. And of course, Kyle. Like, we wouldn't be here without him. This pod wouldn't be here without him. His support. So thank you. This pod definitely wouldn't be here without David, the mystery bus, giving us all the feedback, letting us do what we do, encouraging us to do what we do best, to stay true to ourselves.
Yep. And his middle of the night antics to deny access.
Yeah. Shout out to James of VinceFlynn.com for putting on these cool. Every year we get some interesting things with the ambassadors program, these fun little gimmicky things, and they got us this year. They definitely got us this year.
And the newsletter. He's the one responsible for the VinceFlynn.com newsletter.
Love that newsletter.
Thank you.
This elusive figure of Emily Bessler, does she exist? No, she obviously exists, but gotta thank her for keeping these books going, keeping the juices flowing, pushing these authors to deliver every year, and big shout out to Vince. Obviously this pod wouldn't be here without him, because this pod was started because of him, because of his books. So may he rest in peace, rest in power. And then I think we have to thank all of our patrons, all the people that listen to this pod, all the people who are dumb enough to listen to this pod, dumb enough to listen to us, put up with our bullshit over how many hours of Mitch Rapp, of Scot Harvath, of other thrillers. My wife's, she's really focusing on reading this year, and she's like, "Oh, I already read 5 books this year." I was like, "Oh, wow, that's pretty good."
Sure.
And then she's like, "How many books did you read a year?" And I was like, "I don't really know. I don't really total it up." And then I was like, "Well, actually, we did a recap show, and we read 32 books last year just for the pod."
Yeah.
Crazy, So I think I love doing it. I love talking to you once a week. I love doing it. I love talking to you guys. I love our little group chat that we have with the patrons. We don't get paid to do this. I do it for the affection that I get from you guys, the affection I get from you, Mike, the ability to read these stories and just give our irresponsible speculation,
dude,
ad nauseum.
I can't agree more. And it's the patron group chat that really gave me a new energy over the last, maybe year or two since
once you started that up, we got some new fire in our lives.
That's a new energy. And then everyone who comments, engages with us on the socials, helps push the message, ultimately sell these books, because if we can't sell the books, we're not going to get more of the books. So everyone online pushing the narrative.
Pre-order this book, please.
Yes. Without you guys out there, we wouldn't come together. Put so much time into these, and we're glad to be here. So we have some exciting stuff coming up. We will be wrapping up the Scot Harvath podcast. Spy Master is our next book over there.
Loving that book right now.
Backlash, Near Dark, Black Ice, and then we'll be done with that series. We will then do Edge of Honor mid-year when that comes out over on No Limits, the Thriller podcast, the same way we're transitioning from the Mitch Rapp podcast to the Thriller podcast. So Denied Access will be over here on the Thriller pod. And we're going to sprinkle in some other ones along the way. We already did Dark Vector by Ward Larson. We're going to try to squeeze in The Seventh Floor by David McCloskey. I believe that's coming out around now. And check out our reading list, posted on the socials, posted everywhere you can find us. Chris, why don't you tell the people where they can find us?
You can find us at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Instagram at Thriller Podcast. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch. The OG, baby.
Boom, baby.